We begin with Toby and Jay, who are young graffiti artists, and secretly the infamous I came by taggers. One night they hit another resident of London's elite by breaking into the target's house, leaving their calling card on the wall. The main aim is to prove to these higher members of society that they too are not safe in their own homes. After doing their thing, they take pictures and quickly leave the premise as quietly as they came in. The duo then changes into normal clothes before making their final getaway. Police cars rush past Toby as he makes his way home. At the train station, he pickpockets a salaryman who looks down on a beggar, but then pretends to find the wallet, making the grateful man give him a monetary reward, which he then gives to the beggar. Upon reaching home, the young man lets himself in quietly as to not wake his mum. Meanwhile, their unsuspecting victim comes home with a woman, only to find his wall vandalized. The following day, Jay works his landscaping job trimming the garden for some of London's elite. He also uses it to scout for possible targets to hit down the line. He pretends to need the toilet as an excuse to enter the house. He begins looking around to build a little profile on the target before making his way to the living room, where he takes a picture of the information of their home Wi-Fi router. Just after he places it back, the homeowner, Sir Hector, a retired judge, walks in to ask what he's doing. Jay comments on the portrait of his dad before being shown the toilet. He sends the information to Toby, who immediately starts his investigations. Later at home, Jay shows his girlfriend the judge's house with the prayer that they will be able to afford something like that one day. But she seems skeptical, and I don't blame her. With them London prices, even on a judge's salary alone, that house is out of budget. To her eye, this looks like old money. When he tells her his name, she recognizes it. The judge was a classmate of her university tutor. Hector is even famous for doing charity work for refugees. She also drops news that she's pregnant, but we don't see his initial reaction as it cuts to Jay later meeting Toby at a local cafe. Upon entering, he excitedly starts revealing the information he found on Hector. It turns out that his family are all staunch colonialists. His father was a factory owner and was very critical of decolonization. Jay cuts him off, pointing out that he helps people now, but Toby believes it to be all a front. He enthusiastically breaks the news that his girlfriend Naz is pregnant, so he can't be doing these high-risk behaviors anymore. His friend tries to persuade him to continue, but he has made up his mind. He has chosen family over jail. A couple of months have passed. Toby's mum, Lizzie, holds a therapy session with one of her patients. She later comes home to a messy and loud house. Lizzie complains to Toby about not being able to find the remote again, but he's not really interested. As he leaves, she asks him to tidy up the kitchen, but he postpones it for later. All the while, Hector leaves his house to go play some squash. With the coast clear, Toby sneaks into the compound and uses the Wi-Fi information to disable the internet, which in turn deactivates the security system. He sets a timer on his watch before picking the lock of the back door. However, he almost gets spotted by a neighbor but manages to get inside. He wanders around looking for the best place to put the tag and finds it in the living room. As he moves Hector's dad's portrait, he hears a soft clank, so goes to investigate. This leads him to the basement, where he's relieved to see that the sound was coming from a table fan. Meanwhile, Hector checks his phone whilst his playing partner takes a break. He receives a notification that his internet and home security is down, so he quickly cuts the game short to go check. William is a superintendent in the police force, so he offers to send some officers to check for him. Back at the house, Toby continues to look around the basement, finding old pictures, but he drops them after being startled. While he picks them up, he finds a secret door and looks through the peephole. He falls back horrified at what he sees inside. Around the same time, Hector arrives back home and rushes inside. His internet and security system comes back online. He combs around the house for signs of a home invasion, even checking his secret door. He begins to inspect his dad's portrait, but his attention is taken away by a checkup call from his friend William. This gives Toby the chance to dash out the door. Hector senses this and also rushes to the threshold, but sees no one outside. Unbeknownst to him, Toby lies in front of some hedges in the compound like his first name is Scooby. Meanwhile, Naz gets kicked out by her family for getting impregnated. When Jay tries to calm the situation, he too gets some heat for spreading his seeds. The deflated couple make their way home, where they meet a shaken-up Toby waiting for them. He tries seeking help from his best friend regarding what he saw in the basement, but Jay doesn't give him the chance to voice his concerns since he's battling his own problems, so dismisses him. On his way home, he uses a public phone to call the police to report what he saw in the basement. The following morning, while taking some breakfast and watching Rick and Morty, Hector increases the volume to drown out the banging coming from the basement. The ex-judge is interrupted when the police knock on his door to conduct a quick search based on Toby's anonymous tip. The young man hides close to the house, nervously observing the outcome. Back inside, Hector indirectly intimidates the officers as they go to check the basement. He alerts them that their boss William will hear about their behavior. This causes one of the officers to just peep into the basement, only to see a rattling washing machine. Finding nothing suspicious from their superficial search, they leave the house to Toby's frustration. Hector is now certain that someone came to his house that night and saw his dark secret. He now notices that the portrait had been moved and fixes it. In the interval, a disappointed Toby goes home to sleep, but is later woken up by his mum banging his room door. They get into a big fight about his lifestyle. He even catches a slap when he brings up his deceased dad into the argument. Toby ultimately gets kicked out of the house. He throws the TV remote against a wall out of frustration before making his way back to Hector's house. At this point, the ex-judge has set his own trap with a cricket bat in the passenger seat. He pretends to leave but waits nearby for his phone to notify him that his security system is down before making his way back in. Meanwhile, Toby is inside the basement and gets straight to work opening the secret door. When he does, a frightened, tortured man curls up in the corner. He explains that he's there to help him escape. As they exit the basement, a silhouette of Hector appears near the door. Toby rushes back to the basement and returns the guy to his prison before hiding inside a locker. Hector combs around the house again with his cricket bat looking for the culprit. He makes his way to the basement to check on his prisoner. He comments on him peeing himself again. Unbeknownst to Hector, Toby comes out, grabs a hammer and rushes in to attack but slips on the urine. The ex-judge is startled at first but quickly regains himself and bashes Toby with the bat. He later cuts and removes his clothes using an incinerator to burn the evidence, after which he pours the ashes down the toilet and flushes it. 3 days have passed without Lizzie hearing from her son, so she calls Jay and the police, who open up a missing persons case. From the way Jay answers Detective Ella's questions, Lizzie suspects that he knows something, but he denies it. Later he tries Toby's line and gets no response. Jay makes his way to Hector's place where he breaks into his mailbox and picks a letter inside, hoping to find a lead. He's soon approached by the police, who have responded to calls from some neighbors. They arrest Jay when they find evidence of contraband in the car. While he is in police custody, his prior convictions are brought up, but he's ultimately released when he pleads his case to one of the officers. They return his properties, including the letter, to his surprise. Jay opens it just outside the station, but it is only a new letter from a posh school. He sneaks into Toby's home to hide the letter, which wakes Lizzie. She rushes in thinking it's her son but gets upset when she sees Jay. They have a discussion where Jay informs her on Naz's pregnancy. The topic then switches back to Toby, where he informs her on his secret drawer. They have a look, and Lizzie finds the letter Jay tried to hide. She finds it odd, so the following day she takes it to Ella, who cross-references it with the call that Toby made earlier. She just alerts Lizzie that they will keep her posted if anything comes up. The detective starts to put the information together. They raid Hector's house again, but this time, it is under the pretense of a life being in danger on his premises. He leads them to his basement, and on this occasion, they have a thorough inspection and find his hidden room. When they open it, they only find emergency supplies, but Ella notices that the peephole of the door is on the outside looking in. When she tries to question him about it, he reveals his true nature only for an instant to her, so she arrests him for obstructing an officer. As they place him into the car, he notices Lizzie watching. At the station, his acquaintance with the superintendent leads him to be released without incident. Lizzie later receives a call from Ella, informing her that the case has now been closed down. She later looks through Toby's secret drawer and finds a pen drive hidden under it. After failing to access the files, she gives it to someone to crack while she continues to tail Hector. Meanwhile, the ex-judge targets his next victim when he befriends an Iranian refugee named Omid. He lures him to his place with the promise of helping him with his application for asylum. He spikes his drink while telling him the story of how his father groomed a young Parsi boy to be his lover. His mother couldn't bear it, so took it upon herself to go meet her creator. A young Hector was shipped off to boarding school, so he harbored a deep-seated hatred for them. Omid starts to feel the effects of the drugs, but manages to escape through a window. Luckily for him, Lizzie is on watch duty and sees everything. Hector tries to drag him back in, but she flashes her lights, which stops him from coming out, allowing Omid to escape towards her. The following morning, Jay comes to check on Lizzie but gets worried when he finds out that she has been following Hector. She tells him about what happened the previous night, but Omid doesn't want to go to the police since it might affect his asylum case. Hector later catches up with Omid and threatens him in order to get him back in his car. The ex-judge is later seen in the basement with Omid's phone looking through his messages. Banging and yelling can be heard coming from the secret room. He picks Lizzie's name from the phone and searches it on the internet, which leads him to the realization that Toby is her son. Equipped with his information, he sets a trap for her by allowing her to see where he hides his keys. Lizzie later confronts Jay about he and Toby's activities as taggers after gaining access to the pen drive. He pleads that it's all behind him, but Lizzie asks him to help her break into Hector's house so that they can find the truth. She gets angry when he refuses and wants to prioritize his family. Meanwhile, all this secrecy is starting to affect Jay's relationship with Naz. Lizzie decides to break into Hector's house herself, not knowing it's a trap. She goes upstairs to check for clues, but by the time she gets down, Hector is waiting for her. After a brief struggle, she almost escapes, but Lizzie is eventually captured by him. He ties her to a pole in the basement and disposes Omid's body in front of her. She asks about her son, so he tells her that he flushed his ashes down the toilet. Lizzie's driver's license can be seen burning in the furnace after he terminated her. Jay later receives a pen drive with Lizzie's investigation on Hector. He makes his way to her house when he doesn't hear from her. Judging by the state of the place, she clearly hasn't been home in a while. He goes over to Hector's place, but it has been sold. Jay breaks in to investigate but finds nothing. However, when he enters the basement, his worst fears are confirmed as he realizes that he's too late. He goes back home upset, but Naz has her bags packed ready to leave. She gives him a hug when he starts to blame himself for Lizzie's disappearance. Jay now lives alone, but he gets to babysit his kid. Naz comes to pick up their son but alerts him that Hector is going to read her dissertation. Her tutor is going to give Hector a copy to mark during their old school's tercentenary celebration. Jay waits for Hector in the school car park. He comes out and bins Naz's work before setting off to his new home. Jay follows him and infiltrates the house when Hector goes to sleep. He sneaks into his bedroom picking a cricket bat by the door. As Jay makes his way to attack, he steps on a creaking floorboard which alerts him to wake up. A scrap breaks out between the two, but Jay comes out on top. He goes over to the garage where he frees the first man who was held captive. He calls the police before leaving. When Detective Ella arrives at the scene, they find Hector tied up with the infamous tagline "I came by" spray painted above him, bringing the movie to an end. On to the next story. The movie opens up when Lars finishes up a scene from a TV soap opera he's directing. As they take a break, he discusses with his lead actress about his planned trip to the cabin with his wife Lisa. He gives her a positive update on their relationship, as it was not in a good place months prior. The actress tries to move their conversation back to work, but Lars expresses his worry that Lisa wants to go hiking alone when they go on the trip and comments on how dangerous it could be. After the shoot, he makes a call while driving to a man confirming some arrangements they have made. Lars pays his dad a quick visit at the care home. The old man asks his son how things are with his wife. He alerts him of the planned trip to the cabin to try and rekindle their relationship. He also makes the same comment of how dangerous Lisa's decision to do a solo hiking is. His dad just brushed over it and comments on how he designed and built the cabin himself, facing those picturesque views. The old-timer starts scolding his son's generation for not appreciating the little things in life. He believes that a war would make men out of a generation of weak males. As they discuss, the news channel reports on the escape of 3 convicts from a prison, but they pay no attention to it. Before his son leaves, his dad wishes he died in the war instead of living this miserable life. Lars then makes his way to the local hardware store where he buys a saw, hammer, and duct tape before heading home. This mofo about to DIY a body. Upon his arrival, he is greeted by one of his wife's friends who wishes him a happy hunting to his confusion. He opens the boot and hides his store purchases in the spare tire compartment just before Lisa comes out with some things. The couple greet each other, but Lisa complains about him parking too close to the fence. As they drive through the beautiful mountains, the two have a discussion regarding Lisa's recent acting audition, but it turns into an argument when they start making sly comments about each other's declining careers and their current financial problems. The couple laugh it off just as they arrive at the cabin. Lars enters the pin for the alarm, but it doesn't work, so he just opens the door for them to enter. While inside, the couple begin to unpack and make themselves comfortable. Lars notices some cornflakes on the floor but thinks nothing of it. He makes his way into the basement where he turns on the boiler and checks the guns to make sure they are intact. Later that night, the couple make a nice steak dinner together, but Lars is too squeamish about touching the raw meat, so his wife just grabs it and puts it in the pan a little frustrated. They sit on the deck overlooking the lake to eat their meal. Lars asks for his wife's opinion about the food before their tense conversation turns to Lisa's screenplay. She's writing with a fellow student at her acting class called Diego. From the husband's line of questioning, he seems to suspect that something is happening between the two, but his wife just answers, pretending to be oblivious. They later play a game of Scrabble, but they can't help but get into a little fight about that too. Lisa leaves prematurely when her husband wouldn't give her the points for a word in a different language. The following morning, she lies in the hammock watching her husband as he goes rock-picking in the distance, but by the time he returns back, She is nowhere to be found. He thinks nothing of it and takes his bag full of rocks to the boat before returning to his basement with his recently bought tools. He lays them out on the workbench but takes the hammer upstairs with him and places it on the kitchen table. Lars takes 2 shots of alcohol to sedate himself in preparation for what he's about to do. As he psychs himself up, his wife calls him to help her with something. He slowly walks in with the hammer behind his back. Lars enters the room to find Lisa's back turned to him. As he inches closer to attack, she suddenly turns around and tasers him before he can hit her. Shortly after, he regains consciousness to his hands duct taped around a chair. Lisa sits opposite him, oddly calm, sipping on a cup of hot cocoa. She shows him the hammer and proceeds to question him on what he was planning to do with it. He tells a blatant lie, answering that he was going to fix their roof. He tries to flip the script, asking her why she zapped him. Lisa doesn't buy that for a second, so she brings out the other items. Lars eventually comes clean that he wanted to kill her when she brings a shotgun to the table. Lisa laughs at his dumb plan when she finds out that he was going to dispose of her body by dissecting her with the saw because he can't even hold a raw steak. Things get a bit serious when he alerts her that his motive for wanting to murder her was because she was cheating on him with Diego. Lisa points out that he has not been satisfying her in bed, so what did he expect? He's shocked when she reveals that her plan to kill him was a lot more thought out. It was going to be an accidental shooting. She already planted her alibi into her friend's mind earlier by telling her that Lars insisted they go hunting even though everyone knows that she doesn't like guns. The narrative would have been that while out, she tripped and shot him in the back of the head. She explains that her motive is that he has failed her as a provider, protector, and lover. They are drowning in debt because of his gambling addiction. All he has done is tell her lies. After they have a heated exchange, she orders him to get up so that she can kill him outside and hits him with the gun when he refuses. Luckily for him, their handyman and his co-conspirator Victor sneaks up behind and knocks her out with a shovel. She now wakes up tied up in the basement with Victor pointing the gun at her on some Uno reverse behavior. The handyman is not the sharpest guy, so he confesses that his job was to dissect her after Lars sends her to the afterlife. As the couple continue to talk, Lars figures out that she wants to kill him because of the life insurance. Motormouth Victor reveals that it's the same reason he and Lars want to kill her. He even talks about how he gets half of the claim, which is $500,000. Lars is unable to stop her in time as she alerts the handyman that it's actually $3 million. He gags her while requesting the hammer to finish the job, but Victor points the gun at him instead as he wants to hear what she has to say. Lisa offers him half of the $3 million to kill her husband. Lars counters by offering $2 million for him to stay loyal. The auction comes to an end when she just offers him all the money to kill him. This confuses the handyman, allowing Lars to reach for the gun. During the commotion, Lisa manages to free herself while they wrestle for it. Lars ends up shooting Victor's fingers off, causing him to run around the house in pain. The couple get confused about what they should do. The husband misinterprets his wife's command to stop the bleeding, so he shoots their handyman dead. Lars quickly turns the gun on his wife, which erupts into a brawl between the two. She stabs his feet, allowing her to get hold of the gun to reload it. Lisa makes her way upstairs where they continue to fight for the weapon. It accidentally fires, hitting the ceiling. A man's scream can be heard from the attic. Soon after, it cracks and 3 men fall down on top of the couple, knocking them out. 3 days earlier, the escaped convicts stumbled across their cabin while on the run. Roy hacked into their security system caveman style before picking the locks to the place. That explains why the machine was not working. The trio made themselves comfortable as they look around the place. Roy notices their wedding pictures and spits on it. Soon after, they spot the couple coming, so they decided to hide inside the attic. They wanted to wait patiently to find the right time to leave. While they were in there perving on the couple, Roy dropped a number 2 after eating some wild berries when they were on the run. The following day, they heard and watched as the couple tried to kill each other. The stray gunshot actually hit Roy in the rear end. His jumping in pain is what caused the ceiling to fall. Back to the present, Peter wakes the couple up by pouring a beer on them. The trio munch on a steak sandwich as the husband and wife wonder what's going on. Dave recognizes Lisa from an advert she did some time back. Sadly, it's her only claim to fame. Peter uses their driver's license to ID the two before trying to understand the situation. He explains that they have broken out of jail and need money. While the couple was unconscious, they managed to find some money, but they need more. Lisa alerts them that they have $2,000 in the office, which makes Peter happy. Dave is too eager and starts to undo his pants. Lisa starts to plead, but her husband only makes a smart comment about her getting satisfied now. But ironically, Dave swings the other way, so they grab Lars, ready to take his other virginity as he fights and pleads. Peter makes him lick his shoe while scaring him with tales of the size of Dave's manhood. His wife can only look away as her husband has been humiliated. Lars begs for his life, but it's not good enough, so Peter unleashes Dave on him again. Lisa can't bear to see her husband being run through, so she makes a deal to give them all the money in her savings in exchange for her husband's ass and her safety. Peter can't help but accept the deal. Later in the night, Dave tends to Roy's butt injury while their boss watches TV. Meanwhile, the couple have been tied up on separate posts. Lisa tries to apologize to her husband for everything and wonders how they ended up in this state when they were so in love. She gets a bit frustrated when Lars doesn't answer, so she goes to sleep. He, on the other hand, gets busy and starts to kick some of the pool balls towards himself. When he gets enough, he calls for help, so Roy gets ordered to go check. Lars pretends to need the toilet. He's released to do his business. While in there, Roy tries to get Lisa to show some skin so they can have a tug of war, but she kindly refuses. Lars comes out with the pool balls in his socks and knocks the brute out. He leaves his wife tied, who uses Roy's knife to cut herself loose. The couple sneak back up without getting noticed, but Peter suspects something is wrong when he stops getting a response from his golden boy. The remaining two arm up and head down to find him knocked out with their prisoners on the run. Kinda ironic, wouldn't you say? They leave the cabin to go search in the woods for them. Lisa was unable to find any car keys, so she goes back inside to find the boat keys instead. Unfortunately for her, Roy's flashlight stops working, so he heads back inside to change it, but he finds Lisa in the kitchen. She acts like she wants to be with him while her husband sneaks up with a knife. Lars slices him on the chest, which makes Roy drop the gun, causing it to fire. The sound alerts the other two, who start to rush back. The couple tag team and kill him before his comrade gets back. Dave is hit hard by the loss. As the couple hide inside their room wardrobe, Lars decides to pick the worst possible time to respond to her earlier apology by blaming himself for their current situation. Peter enters the room and knows where they are. Lars instructs his wife to run for the boat while he begins to rush the boss. The two cause a misfire of the gun, which brings the ceiling down again. Unfortunately for Peter, Roy's poo falls on his face. Meanwhile, his wife runs into Dave at the front door as she tries to escape. Lars has managed to give the slip to the criminal boss and then attempts to help his wife up. Peter uses them to break his fall when he jumps from upstairs. While he punches Lars, his wife impales him with a rake. At this point, Dave has woken up and holds Lisa at knife point. The boss drags Lars to the lawnmower where he tries to kill him using it, but luckily for him, his dad appears out of nowhere and knocks him down. A neighbor noticed that something strange was happening at the cabin the previous night, so they decided to call him. The old-timer stole the car from one of the care staff to check things out. He expertly wields the gun and shoots Dave's legs, forcing him to let go of Lisa. Before he can finish complaining about the mess they have caused, Peter stabs him in the back, but the old man is built different, so he bites the criminal's nose in retaliation. Lisa pushes Lars into the car as he calls to his dad. While they drive off, the convict drags the old man to the lawnmower and places him on it. He then shoots the car, causing it to crash, before asking Dave to get inside to patch himself whilst he takes care of business. Lars asks his wife to get to the boat while he goes to face the two. He breaks Dave's injured legs before shooting him in the family jewels. She makes her way to the boat, but there is no fuel. Peter attacks and kidnaps her on the boat, leaving his partner for dead, as he still wants the money. Meanwhile, alpha male pensioner pulls himself off the lawnmower and crawls to his hammock where he dies with his son besides him looking at the view. Lars manages to get on boat by swimming. The couple put up their last fight as they manage to beat Peter by throwing him overboard with the rocks. The rope catches Lars' legs and sends him overboard too, but his wife saves him. The police later arrive, and as the two survivors, they lie about the events. The couple milk it as they find themselves on various late-night talk shows. They cash in on their ordeal and sell the story, which is made as a movie. Lisa stars in it while Lars directs the movie. He makes a few changes to the story to make them look better. The couple look at each other and smile as they know the truth. I must say, truly toxic indeed.